One of the things that I did want to do is just find out what your goals are today. So does anybody know what they're looking to achieve out of today's session?
I'd just like to learn a bit more about branding and positioning myself. I think I've definitely got a strong brand, but it's a bit all over the place, but I know it's strong.
Okay. Good, that's a good place to start. And good that you know that you've got a strong brand. I mean, obviously I know you as well, and I know that you do, which is a good thing. Okay, fab. Well, I'll keep that in mind. Margaret, is there anything specific that you were looking to get?
I just keep hearing about how I am my brand. How do I know what my brand is? I am just me.
Fair enough. Okay.
And I'm not Coca-Cola. I am not McDonald's. I am Margaret Ashley, voiceover.
Yes.
I do.
That's a good point. That is, Margaret. I'm very similar like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Except you're selling a product. You're selling, presumably, you're doing events management, or you're selling?
No, just photos, content for events.
Oh, you're a photographer. Yeah.
Yeah, but everyone knows me as me.
Yeah. So you go, 2 goals.
So, as you know, my name's Kim, and I started Scribble 10 years ago, believe it or not. I've worked with some really big companies and some amazing small or kind of micro companies that are really growth hungry. I'm chair for Birmingham Tech Week, which sole purpose is to shine a spotlight on Birmingham and the awesome tech companies that we've got here in the West Midlands. And I'm also a mentor for the NatWest Accelerator programme. So I work with companies to help them grow and scale. So my mission's simple, and it's to help brands get more sales. Our economy needs it more than ever before, and I've got a wealth of experience to share. And obviously my goal today is to help people here. So this is what we're going to cover. We're going to have a look at all the documents that you need to gather together. We're going to have a look at how you can design an audit framework and be able to define your why. Do a website walkthrough, KPIs, which are really, really important, and obviously following with some questions if you've got questions at the end. So a brand audit is really important because it will enable you to see where improvements need to be made. And as we go through this webinar, I'm hoping that there'll be a number of kind of aha moments. Your brand audit will focus on more than just the aesthetics. So I'm not going to tell you if your logo looks okay, because actually that's not going to win you any more business. But what does matter is defining your market, your culture, your vision, and your mission statements. And this is what really forms your framework, because you'll mark everything against it. So these statements will become vital and will become part of your brand messaging, essentially. So the first things that you need to do is gather all of your branded marketing materials. And they could be in the form of anything like internal documents, if you've got brand values, USPs, brand stories, if there's a particular tone of voice that you know that you use quite regularly. I'm going to share these slides with you as well afterwards and the notes, so you'll be able to follow up and you don't need to take notes, so don't worry about writing everything down. And then also have a look at your branding assets, so things like logos and other brand elements that you've got, printed collateral, any stationery, brochures, trade show materials, if you've done any adverts in the past, any adverts that you've created. Generally, just real life examples of how you use your brand in the real world. And then also think about your online identity. So if you've got website content, social media, all of the artwork and content that you put out on your social media platforms, any content marketing that you do, so blogs, video, white papers, case studies, anything that you've got in the news or PR mentions, testimonials, kind words from customers. Once you get started, there is a huge amount of information and there's so much content that I'm sure you've probably got. And when you start putting it all together, it's really going to give you a good overview of your company. So then once you've kind of pulled all these documents together, you need to write your mission, vision, and positioning. Because I think what we tend to do is we start a business and then we get going and we kind of forget to start formalising these processes and to start putting all these things into written format. So the first thing that we're going to do is start with why. Why are you here? Why do you do what you do? Why do you get up and go to work each day? It's a massive question. And sometimes it can be really, really difficult to answer. I know I've done it, and it's a big question that takes a lot of thought. It's not something that you're going to do overnight. It's not something that you're going to think straight away you've got the answers. It'll just be mulling over in your mind for days, weeks, dare I say it, months. But the idea is that once you've been able to figure out your why, you can then start defining your purpose. And your purpose is really, really powerful. We've got a personal purpose, so a personal reason of why we do the things that we do, but we'll also have a business purpose, and mostly they are intertwined, they work together. We tend to do the things that we enjoy doing, and so we do more of it because we enjoy it, and that really defines, you know, what we do and kind of who we work with. Now, I didn't set Scribble up with the sole purpose of making money. It's sometimes a result of the efforts, but it's not what drives me. Otherwise, I'd be charging, wouldn't I, for this webinar? But I know through the projects that we deliver, if I can add value to clients and they walk away with a better understanding of why we're challenging perception, or why we're asking them to make certain decisions, or why we're choosing design elements over another, if they understand that, then they walk away happy. And ultimately, for me, this always results in a better working relationship and a long-term partner, because we're all working from the same page, and we all understand why we're doing things. And that's not just me, that's my whole team. So we all thrive on learning and challenging, and it makes us better at what we do. And culture in the workplace is a huge topic at the moment. And when I started Scribble, I didn't have an About Us page, I had an Our Culture page, because I wanted to connect with similar-minded people. I'd also experienced quite a corporate world, and I wanted to move as far away from that as possible. It was important to me that my team could come and sit around a table and share ideas. We are in the business of ideas, particularly in the creative world. We're driven by ideas. So if people couldn't sit around a table and share ideas and felt uncomfortable, then it wouldn't work. And I know when I was asked years ago what I wanted for my business, the answer was always the same. I want my team to feel comfortable. And he laughed, business coach at the time, and said, why? Normally people say they want a Lamborghini. So everybody's purpose is different. So how do you define your why or your mission statement? So what you need to do is just answer a very simple question. 2, your contribution, so that your impact. So as is, to put it into context, to empower small business owners and marketeers with the knowledge to make better brand decisions so that they can grow faster. This little sentence can take days of thinking and mulling, but it really helps, once you've got it, it really helps everybody understand what you're doing and why you're doing it. And because we can't build compelling brands, you know, without first challenging and inspiring our customers to think deeper. So with greater insight, we can make sure that our customer brands speak directly to their customers. And the impact of this is that they then target the right customer and provide a better experience because they're a good fit from the start. So some of the questions that you'll want to answer, and you either answer these by yourself or with as many people as you can from your team. So you can run a survey to get all the answers, and at the end I'll go into a little bit more detail about how you can manage that. But these are the questions that really help tease out the information. So what do you enjoy doing most? What moment are you most proud of? What are you passionate about? When do you feel most energized? What's the core purpose of your role and why does it matter? And I think really if you're all sharing similar answers within your team, you've got a pretty good indicator of what drives you as a collective. And these answers should then dictate the content that you share. So everything should revert back to your why. And then you couple that with your positioning statement and your vision, and you've got the framework from which to base your audit on. Are there any questions there that anybody's kind of thinking that they know the answers to already, or how do these look for you guys? Anybody got any kind of comments?
I assume you're talking about these questions are what do you enjoy doing most within your job, not within your life in general, and what was your most proud moment?
Yeah, within your job. So yeah, your most proud moment within your working career, because if it's what you're most proud of, it's often what you've enjoyed doing the most. If it's a particular client that you've worked with or a project that you've done, how could you then take that and emulate it and build on it and grow it? So I've got a couple of other resources for you as well to use for your vision statement and your positioning statement. So obviously you'll have access to these links afterwards. And then you'll be able to start, and literally these statements are really only a paragraph each. So it's not a lot of writing. It's more thinking time. So then once you've got your statements in place, you need to pull all of your content that you got out originally together and put them all side by side, spread them out on the table, get them up on the screens, and start looking at everything collectively and asking, do they reflect your purpose? Do they share what it is that you enjoy doing most, or how you help people, or whatever the so that part fits with? Does your website tell your customers what impact you have? Does your brochure clearly demonstrate your why? So possibly the easiest one to start with is your website, because this is often the first touch point a customer will have. When they access your homepage, do they get a sense of your purpose, or are they faced with welcome to our website? What does welcome to our website tell us about the company? Nothing. Will I feel engaged? Probably not. Here's another one. Schools are great. Schools, every single school website you see says welcome to our website. I see it all the time. Largely it's because we are faced with writer's block and we don't know what to say. We don't know what to fill that space with, but we know that we need to put something there. So we just jump in and start trying to sell our services, but without really getting across what our brand's voice is or our key messaging is. So with all those newly defined statements that you've written, you can then put them next to your website and say, okay, does our mission statement match with our opening sentence on our website? Does the homepage answer burning questions that your potential customers have? Can you start to weave in your mission statement in your opening paragraph? So start to walk through your website and use Google Analytics to take a look where your traffic is coming from. How is social media impacting on your website traffic? If you get a lot from social media, then what does the bounce rate look like? If you've got a really high bounce rate from your social media posts onto the website, then potentially people are landing on content that they're not expecting, or it's the wrong target audience and they're just clicking through things, but they're not really paying attention and they're not really engaging. So use the bounce rate indicator tool in Google Analytics to really work out which part of your website is doing the best. And then you can use that to kind of gauge whether or not the pages are engaging and successful. And I would say our high bounce rate is anything above 60%. So Google Analytics will tell you what percentage. the bounce rate is for individual pages. One of the things that I wanted to share with you, which I think is quite important, is the 3 most powerful KPIs. And the reason why I'm going to share them with you now is because before you make any changes, you want to know where you're starting so that you can come back and measure afterwards. So you know, if you make some changes to your homepage content, does that impact on some of the KPIs that we'll go through next? Because if you measure it from the start, you'll be able to refine it and keep improving on it. So the first one is landing page conversion rate. So the landing page conversion rate plays a huge part in how successful your website is at converting users into customers. And it's particularly important, I think, especially now, because we're investing so much into paid adverts, podcasts. Podcasts are huge at the moment, and webinars, obviously, like this one. So if you're driving traffic to any of these, then you need to be able to measure them. Typically, a good conversion rate is 2.35%. I always question if that's good enough, because particularly if we're investing time and money into sending people to our websites or to our content, then really, could we aim to double it? Could we aim to get 5%? And if you can set yourself these little goals as you go along and keep increasing, then it means that you'll be able to start fine-tuning the content that you're putting out. So if you look at the numbers and what that means, if you've got 2,000 visits to your website per month, and you get 300 of those visitors complete a contact form, then you've got a conversion rate of 15%, which is quite high. But you'll be able to use these on specific landing pages and then work out which ones are doing better. So you can do some A/B testing and just share the 2 versions and see which is stronger, see which key messaging people respond to. And obviously you can use that then to determine if the changes that you've made are working. The other one to think about is the average session duration. It's often overlooked and underused, to be honest, but it's one of the most important for 2 reasons. The first reason is that the longer someone spends on your website, the more likely they are to contact you, because they're more engaged. They spend more time looking at your content and reading information. And secondly, Google favours websites that have got longer dwell times, because it signals to Google that the content is good and that people are enjoying it and that it's valuable. So Google will push you up the rankings as well. So that's 2 really good reasons. One of the things I say is your website sessions are all stored in Google Analytics. So be sure to whitelist your IP, because otherwise your IP is going to be trapped. And if you've got a WordPress site, for example, and you make lots of edits and lots of changes, if you spend half a day on a page, then it's going to skew your data. So just make sure that you take your own IP out of Google Analytics, you don't track yourself. And then the third one is page load time. So I think it's a fairly well-known fact now that people are really impatient, especially when it comes to websites. The choice is so great, and really if a website takes too long to load, we just click off, we go to the next site. We've got choice at our fingertips all the time. So I always have a look at putting your website into the developers page on Google, and then you can get a speed page test done, and it will highlight whether or not your page load speed is fast enough. I think if you've got anything more than 4 seconds, if your site takes 4 seconds or longer, you're probably losing vital conversions, and particularly within e-commerce. So there's a few things that you can look at to try and speed up your site. So remove any of the unwanted CSS. Check your image sizes. You want them to be less than 300 kilobytes. Laser load your images so that the ones above the fold load first and the ones after will load as you scroll down. And my biggest bugbear is the homepage sliders. We've all seen them. It's lots of images that scroll and scroll, but they take up the most amount of resource and they take the most amount of time to load. So pick one image that matches with your purpose, with your mission statements, have a really clear message, a really clear image, and don't have the sliding scrollers because they take a lot of time to load. So it's quite a lot of information. Does anybody have any questions, or does anybody want to get a drink because it's so hot now? Or we'll keep going.
Keep going, it's fine with me.
Okay. So back to the brand audit. Put your kind of KPIs to one side. Keep them in the back of your mind, so don't forget about them. But next, you need to start asking for customer feedback. Here's really a bunch of questions to get you going. So sum up this brand in 4 words. What problem or problems does this brand solve? I always think this is a fascinating question because sometimes people will come up with answers that you didn't even consider, but for them was really important. How does this brand make you feel? How would you rate this brand's customer service? How could this brand improve its customer service? And obviously this will work best with existing customers who you've known for a little bit of time, because they'll need to understand obviously who you are. But if you've got a strong culture and if people understand your brand, then hopefully the feedback that they give to this should match with the answers that you gave at the beginning with the first range of questions. So you can take all of this information and feed that into your why as well, so that it's relevant. Employee feedback is also really important. Often they're the heart of the company and they're face-to-face with customers. So think about the types of questions that you can ask them too. Here's a range of questions. It's also at this point going to start making you realize some things. So if, for example, they can't answer what the brand vision is, then you know that it's probably an area that needs work. If you've got team members that can't answer that, then I'd say putting together some kind of documentation to share where the company is going and what the goals are would be a really good place to start. And obviously, if we're not all working to the same goal, then it could be one of the reasons that's kind of preventing the company from growing as well. But the best question for me here is, does anything ever stop you from delivering on that promise? I love this question because I bet there's a whole range of answers. Does anybody ever ask the question, what stops you? What stops you from delivering on that promise? Do you have a promise? So you see how these questions can start to open up a whole load of other questions and give you different things to think about and to strengthen. So really, as I say, this isn't going to be something that you can do overnight, but I do promise it'll be worth it. So far, we've got the questions, we've developed a framework, so the form of your vision and mission statements. And these statements will be what you need to keep referring back to. They'll make sure.
I've got a question.
Yeah,
I've got a quick question. For instance, I work more with freelancers who work under me. Do you think they could still answer these types of questions as an employee, or would it be more about the company? Yeah,
I would, because they're acting on your behalf.
Yeah.
So they'll still have an idea. It'll open up questions that they might come back to you with different questions. But I would, yes, definitely send it to them and see what they say, because they've got a perception of your brand. They're also going to be one of the first touch points for people that will work with your brand. So if the messaging that they're giving is different to what you want, then you can use it to certainly say, this is who we are, this is what we do, and it'll bring everybody onto the same page.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah. So yeah, being able to kind of keep those statements on one side, start using it as a tick list. So does our latest post on Facebook answer our customer problems? And customer problems will be things that they've either identified themselves when you've asked the questions in the questionnaires. Does our website strongly convey how we help people? Does our email signature reconfirm our key message? Your email signature is actually really, really powerful. Excuse me. Because within your email signature, if you tell people that you help them, do you take it a step further by doing things like putting your mobile number on your email signature to personalize it and to say, I am open to take your calls. It's all these little signposts of information that will really help people to feel that they are able to connect personally with you. So when we put everything side by side, is our messaging consistent? Does it all follow the same pattern, the same messaging? If we say that we help people, how do we show that we help people? So can you see how kind of asking all these questions will help identify what's missing or what could be improved on? And I guess at this point, what would be your biggest barrier? What's going to stop you from kind of working through this process and pulling everything together? So one of the things that I want you to do now is get your diaries out and put some time in your diary where you literally have no distractions. Turn your computers off, turn your phones off for half a day, even a day if you can manage it, so that you can start working through it all. And if you've got that day in your diary, because life gets busy, work gets in the way, but I want everybody to be able to say, one day next week, Thursday, next week, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to pull everything together, and I'm going to spend a little bit of time on our brands and really trying to strengthen it and look at where we can make improvements. So does anybody use Asana? Anybody heard of Asana?
Nope.
Because Asana really traditionally is used for teamwork and to-dos, but it can be really useful for managing an audit. Because of the collaborative nature of the tool, Asana is ideal for supporting open discussions and back and forths between internal teams, between third parties, anybody that you might be working alongside, even if it's just yourself. Because you can add all of your tasks, set deadlines against each one, assign them to team members, assign them to yourself, put your deadline, put your dates, and you've got a list of things to work through. So if you're wondering about how you might distribute your questionnaires, this is the best way to do it. It's free as well, it's free to use. They've got a free plan if it's just for yourself. So it means that you can then send out your questionnaires through this. And if you've got people who are perhaps a little bit lax in returning stuff, it's quite public as well. No one wants to be outed in public for not delivering when they said that they would. So within Asana, you can build your task list and then spend some time planning out the steps and then get to work actioning them as you go. The planning stage here, I think, is just as important because with a clear plan of action, you won't go off track. So during your time that you've set aside, use it to then use Asana to plan everything out. And then at the end, you'll have a clear idea of where your problem areas are. And then you can decide which ones you tackle first. To define which are the most important and where you should focus your efforts, go back to your mission statement. You see, everything keeps coming back to your statements. Which ones from your list is going to have the biggest impact on your customers? The ones that do are the ones that you should start with first. So essentially that's it. That's my entire process for completing a brand audit and unlocking some of the barriers that you might be facing.